How do you make someone focus completely on your words?
There's a few different ways to do that. So let's talk about the mechanics of how that works first. So first, when you want someone to focus, if I want you to feel anything, then all I get you to do is pull files out of your mental file cabinet. And this is one of the most powerful techniques that people don't really understand. If I talk about something, you have to pull out your references and all of your files about that thing in your own file cabinet. You can't resist it. Like if I say pink elephant, I've just created an image in your head irresponsibly, which is how we usually use language. But if I talk about something vividly, then I'm getting you to pull out these files. And this is just one of the most critical lessons that I teach any of my one-on-one clients. So if I know that I can get files pulled out of your file cabinet, I also know that your file clerk, or whatever we call like this memory retrieval system, I just call it a file clerk. He's going down there and he's going to pull out this file, this file, this file. Everything that he pulls out, he's going to leave it out on the desk. And because he's leaving it out on the desk, that makes the memory way more accessible later on. And this is called priming. So if I want to get you to think that being really focused on something is your own idea, I'll talk about when I watched a show and how it captivated all of my attention. And I might shift the words from me saying I to using the word you. And it'll sound something like this. So name like a really good movie, anything.
Die Hard.
Okay. So Die Hard is one of those movies that people don't think is a Christmas movie, but kind of is a Christmas movie. I remember the first time watching Die Hard. It's one of those times where you're sitting there and now I've just shifted to you and people don't notice. Like you didn't notice that I shifted from I to you, right? So it's one of those moments where you're just sitting there, you're watching a movie, and all of a sudden this one thing gets super interesting and all your focus gets sucked up into this one thing. It's like the volume on everything else around you gets completely turned down and you just completely zone in on something. So in order for you to understand what I just said, you had to pull out references from your own memory. So I'm getting you to pull those files out one by one as I'm describing each little piece of this process. The second thing I did that you may not have noticed is when I said you get completely focused on just one thing. I'm pointing at myself right now, very covertly. I'm not like doing this, right? But I'm saying you just get completely focused on just one thing. And it's like the volume on everything else gets completely turned down as I'm pointing away from your line of sight to me. So I'm doing a lot of things at once. So what we did here is pulled out all those files, made it more readily available, and then made you think that it's your own idea to feel how you feel because that all came from your own head. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
And then I'd use what's called gestural referencing when I'm saying something and then pointing in a certain direction. So like if I want to demonize another group of people, I might point, I'm not going to point at you, right? I wouldn't want to point at me. I want to point like away from us. So let's say the goal is to make you super focused. And I know that you are a podcaster, right? So I might say, I've been on a lot of podcasts and it's amazing how so many times I'll be on a podcast and there's this one podcaster who's like, he's talking to you, but he can't pay attention. It's like they're not really connected. They're not tuned in to the conversation. And you're nodding your head the whole time. But what I'm getting you to do is covertly make an identity agreement about yourself. I'm covertly getting you to agree that you are not that type of person. So if we started out our conversation that way, and I talked about watching Die Hard, how it is to get focused on something, and then I demonized this other group of people that's not us, saying that they can't focus, they can't tune in, they can't really connect with another person. During that time, your brain is making these agreements. And the moment I get you to make an identity agreement that's different than an idea. So I can say, yeah, it's really important to focus on a podcast. You'd be like, oh, yeah. It just sounds like bullshit because I'm getting you. That's an idea. An identity is me getting you to say, I'm not that person or I am this person, depending on how I'm wording myself. Does that make sense so far? Then we add in a third layer. And this one would be like using what's called an embedded command, which are not really effective for achieving big things, but making small shifts in a person's thoughts. You can use these for sure. And this is where you hide a sentence inside of a sentence. And the sentence should be able to stand on its own, and it should sound like its own sentence. So essentially, the 4 rules of delivering some kind of embedded language in your language is, number 1, whatever you say to that person has to be standalone as a sentence. Number 2, you drop your tone. And dropping the tone means I'm going to talk to you in a way that I'm telling you to do something, but it's hidden within a sentence. And number 3, I want to return to our topic of discussion as fast as possible so your brain is not picking up on what's happening, and I'm returning you back to familiar territory very quickly. Does that make sense? You want an example?
Sure.
All right. So let's say I just talked about these other podcasters, and I would say, I think it's really rare when someone could just stop and completely focus. With me, the way I see it, when I'm on a podcast, so I might just go right back to podcasting, right? So that would be coming back to the conversation. But what I said is stop and completely focus with me. All as one sentence. So if you took the audio clip of what I just said out, that's its own sentence. And I paused before and I paused after to help the unconscious part of your brain pick up on that more. Like it pays more attention to it, even though it sounds like a run-on sentence. So when I'm saying the words with me, the conscious part of your brain thinks that it's hearing me starting a new sentence. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I might say, let's say the word like get completely fascinated, right? And I want to say that to another person. I might say, it's one of those moments, just like when we're watching Die Hard, one of those moments where you can just stop and feel completely fascinated with me, the way I see it. And then I would go right back into our conversation. But I said, get completely fascinated with me. I didn't say with me, right? So if you cut the audio out of what I said, you would think that I was telling someone to do something.
So now that the audience is fully tuned in, relaxed, open, how do you feed in a thought to believe it was always their idea? And how do you change the way someone thinks permanently?
So there's a recipe, and I can't teach you the whole recipe because it's something that we teach to a lot of attorneys. But I'm going to give you exactly what you need to kind of reverse engineer this on your own. The number one thing when I teach people influencer persuasion is if you want someone to think an idea is their own, you have to make them feel clever for coming up with that idea. Clever, not smart, not that they agreed with you. They feel clever on their own. And I don't think we've ever covered this before, but if you watch the news, you'll see the news come up and they'll say, local woman is reported missing. She's been missing now for 24 hours. Witnesses say that before she was missing, they saw her arguing with her boyfriend. Details at 11. But what did your brain do? Your brain was like, oh, I know who did it. I know exactly who did it. So your brain makes this conclusion because they put 2 pieces of evidence in front of you. So when you think, I bet the boyfriend did it, you're not saying, I agree with the news. You're not saying, I agree with the facts that were presented to me. You're saying, I'm coming up with my own idea. So the goal is, if I get 2 pieces of data and just put them in front of you and get them close enough together, I'm going to let you reach out and click these pieces of data together. And I'm not giving you the answer. I'm making you think that it was your own idea. So I'm just getting 2 ideas that come together and letting you put them together. So on a sales call, I'm not going to put the puzzle together for you, but I'm going to arrange all the pieces where all you have to do is go, oh yeah. And they're right beside each other and you feel clever because you're like, oh, I know this goes right to this thing. So if you get someone to feel clever, just about every time in every scenario, you're going to succeed in making that person think that it's their own idea. Get those ideas close enough together with some proximity that the person can clearly see they go together.
And then I guess the long-term reprogramming of beliefs, what does that look like? And how, on our last podcast, you mentioned how you could brainwash me to murder someone in about 40 minutes. Does it work the same with beliefs? Like, could you change any belief that I had?
I don't think that rewiring beliefs is required to rewire behavior. So it's much easier to rewire identity than beliefs. Because if you have beliefs about something, I would have to argue against them. I have to present facts and have to present counter arguments and all these things. I can get you to make identity agreements very easily. Like, are you a good person? Are you mostly right about things? Do you have a good intuition? Everyone's going to say yes, or everyone's going to at least feel yes to those questions. And I lead that identity into something that I want you to do. It's 3 steps. It's perception, and then context, and then permission. So if I change the way that you see a situation, I'm just changing your perception, not your beliefs. So if I get you to see a situation a little bit differently, and all we're talking about here is I'm shifting your camera angle. So like I'm taking one of the cameras that we have in the room here, and I'm just moving it maybe like 10 inches to where there's a slight shift and like, oh yeah, I can see the situation a little bit differently. And then context. If I change the context, I don't need to shift any of your beliefs. I automatically change your behavior. And that's what's happening with all of society right now is they're learning this method, and the context is shifting so fast that it's making people celebrate violence. Like people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, which is pure sociopath behavior, but it becomes okay given a certain context in these people's heads. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying their context has shifted so much that if I demonize someone and make them like, this is baby Hitler, and you really genuinely believe that, you're going to be like, wow, that changed the future for everybody. But another example of this, in the 1950s, there's a comedy hypnosis show. Like you've seen them before. Like you go to a comedy club, there's a hypnotist there. He gets some volunteers up on stage, makes them do like stupid shit. Like one of the bits that this guy did, he had everybody up on stage and he said, all of you are working for the sheriff's department or police, and everybody out in the crowd right now is rowdy. They're at a house party. You're trying to bust this house party up. They're waking up the whole neighborhood, and nobody's listening to you. But the thing is, you can't get off the stage. So everybody up on the stage is kind of going up to the edge of the stage, yelling at everybody, pointing at them like, you better listen to my authority. I'm going to arrest you. So they're under hypnosis, like thinking that they're police, kind of playing along a little. And then he says, now the people in the audience, now they're pulling out these giant like alien ray guns or some kind of a gun. And then one guy that's up on the stage hypnotized is an off-duty police officer with a concealed weapon, and draws his weapon and starts shooting into this crowd of people. Really happened. Which he obviously was a good guy on the force for many, many years. And the context was something where he would use his weapon. So he was in a comedy club, then he was in this weird situation where he's on duty. And in his mind, being on duty means that if I'm threatened, I'm going to immediately react with deadly force if, these conditions are met for deadly force. So the context shifted. So his behavior automatically shifted, which is the final thing in PCP. We have perception, context, and permission. So this gave him like this social permission to say, I am allowed to do this and I'm justified to do this because the context changed. So if you can change a person's context, you can get any behavior that you want out of a human being.
That's really fascinating. I haven't heard that story before about the undercover officer being hypnotized. I'm sure that's probably happened a few times.
No doubt.
Chase, how do you know if you're in the middle of a psychological operation?
I would just assume 24/7 that we are. But let's go into the details. But
what are the signs that something is a psychological operation specifically?
So narrative sticking points. So matching narrative is number one. And matching narrative means that I'm hearing pretty much the same messaging from media outlets, celebrity influencers, which is number two, and authority. So people that are in a position of social authority, not like cops and lawyers, and judges, but people in social authority, like pop singers, and I won't say any names, pop singers, the most popular pop singers, all saying the same shit on social media, that should terrify you to the deepest part of your core, that none of this is real, or none of this is what it seems like. And those are the first two. Number three is, if you're seeing people silenced or ostracized for disagreeing with an idea. We saw this during the pandemic, like crazy. There were Harvard-educated medical doctors that were kicked off of social media, which is our greatest fear of human beings, is being ostracized socially. It's greater than death. This is why public speaking is rated higher by almost everybody than death. And it's not public speaking that we're afraid of. It's being out there and having a big idea and then getting rejected by a large crowd. That's what terrifies human beings. And you can leverage the shit out of that, especially when you can manufacture an artificial tribe on social media. So Harvard-educated doctors that disagreed with this mainstream narrative were getting banned. And the dude, I can't remember his name. I wish I could, but the dude who invented mRNA vaccines was on there and went against the narrative and got ostracized. The dude who invented this kind of vaccine, it's unbelievable. So like, and that step three, just remember in your mind that if an idea requires suppression to exist, it's a horrible idea, and it's most likely a psyop. Good ideas don't need to suppress other people. Good ideas travel on their own. Good ideas spread on their own. It doesn't need suppression by itself. So those three are some of the big ones. And
is it fair to assume then that the people who are the most silenced have an idea that holds value, at least?
Yes. If I'm seeing a large group of people or companies, because it's not like, you're not seeing like, it's not the news host that's silencing that person. It's the billionaire owner of that network. And that's a big deal. That needs to terrify you to your core. Because if I could go on a little rant here and just, let's talk about psyops and for real right now. When Charlie Kirk got killed, I put a video out there. I don't know if you saw it. I just kind of put my iPad up on a table and went on a rant. And I don't know how to record videos very well. I don't know how I have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, because the way that I record videos on YouTube, I just start a Zoom meeting and record it. That's how much I don't know how to record stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're on social media, I want everybody to know that there's a 90% chance that this stuff that we're seeing around the world is not some giant agenda that's scheduled out in some dark room with dudes smoking cigars and writing all this stuff out and planning it out. If you look at how algorithms work, it's not like, let's serve George Soros or anything like that. The algorithms are, what's going to make Jack click on this ad to buy some new boots or to buy a new coat, right? And that's what the algorithms do. And we can go deep into how algorithms manipulate the shit out of you if you want to do that. But and the second thing that they do is make you feel like you're part of a tribe. No matter what, if you have some dipshit weird beliefs, they're gonna put you in with all of your buddies that think like you do. But at the end of the day, if you're on the left, you're being shown the stupidest dumbasses on the right that could possibly exist. But what the way that you're shown it so often on repeat, you have no other choice in your mind unless you're deliberately seeking out competing media narratives. You have no other choice in your mind but to think all of these people are insane. All of them are absolute idiots. I don't know how this is possible. And if you're on the right and you scroll through your feed, if you're on X or Instagram, doesn't matter. You scroll through your feed and you're going to see the absolute dipshit morons on the left. And they're going to show you the most crazy psycho people possible over and over and over and over again until you say, this is the left. Not these are people on the left or this is the right. Not just these are a couple of people. Because if you think to the time that, where did we go yesterday? We went, we didn't go into Walmart. But if you walk into a Walmart, you're going to see people that voted in a way that you didn't vote. And they're not breaking shit. They're not screaming. They're not psycho. And they probably want the same things that you do. You have more in common with these people than you think. You're going to go see somebody on the right if you're on the left, or somebody on the left if you're on the right. They want to feed their kids. They want to pay lower taxes. They want to feel safe in their own home. They want to chill. They want to come home at the end of the day and put their feet up and have some time off. They want to have time with their family. I want everybody to know I've studied psyops for a very, very long time. I train psyops, and you have more in common with all those people that didn't vote the way you voted than some billionaire elite that's influencing media narratives. Even if that billionaire votes the same way you do, you still have more in common with that person that voted the other way that you see every day in your life. That's not crazy. That is absolute engineered reality. And I have a checklist of how to tell if you're living in an engineered reality that you can, if you do show notes, then somebody can click it in the description. You can download it right now. And the guy from the Y-Files, AJ Gentile, just did a whole show on this, the engineered reality system. And I'm not sitting here trying to say, you need to love your neighbor, you need to love people, and that'd be great. Yeah. I'm just saying that the hatred that people are feeling for the other side is engineered. It is not real. And it's very difficult for people to admit that I have been manipulated. And I can tell you, as the psyops dude, the mind control guy, whatever you want to call it, I am as vulnerable as everyone else. I don't have you don't get a vaccine. If you learn a certain amount, you don't get immune to manipulation. This watch I'm wearing came from an Instagram ad. So I'm not immune to any of this stuff. And the moment that you think, not me, I'm not immune to that, you become the most vulnerable person in the room. It's like you're going into Best Buy and you get a laptop and you're like, no, I don't want any of that antivirus software. I don't get viruses on my computers. You become vulnerable because you think you are invulnerable. So realizing that all of us can be manipulated and then coming to terms, it's very difficult to do, to say, I've been lied to, I've been manipulated. And the biggest thing that people need to say is this isn't me. This isn't me. This is an engineered reality version of me. And what are those people responding to? Why am I getting mad at the left or mad at the right? Context. My perception got shifted, then my context, and then my permission to treat people like shit, or, however I choose to react to that situation.
Are you saying that the way these algorithms try to divide us and incite violence is engineered in itself? Or do you think it is a fault of the algorithms and what they reward? Because people say algorithms reward watch time. I mean, you know this stuff because you do YouTube. You have your own YouTube channel as well. Algorithms reward watch time, engagement, comments, shares, etc. Is this just a result of the way it's designed, or do you think it was intentionally designed this way to incite this kind of violence, political violence?
I think it's both. And here's the bottom line that it's going to hopefully seal this for everybody. Number one, their job is to get your attention and keep your attention and then sell you shit and make you click on ads so they can make money. That's number one. The best way to do that is to put you in a tribe where you feel safe most of the time, show you what you agree with. However, these two Chinese intelligence officials wrote a paper that later got turned into a book called Unrestricted Warfare. And in this book, they talk about a hypothetical country that's very similar to the United States. And it's a country that has what they call asymmetric capabilities, where our military is vastly superior and would win in a military war. However, in order to win against a country like this hypothetical country the Chinese talk about, PSYOPs was a huge part of this. And there's two trains of thought, and I'm not subscribed to either one. And I don't just say that to be a podcast idiot who doesn't want to piss people off. I genuinely don't know. Maybe it's both. So number one, the fastest way to engineer behavior in a country is to destabilize the nation. And the fastest way to destabilize a nation is make people stop trusting their neighbors. Stop trusting people that are within an arm's reach that could help you during an emergency. Number one. And the second train of thought is, if I want to obfuscate and hide my actions as one of these weirdo elites who's kind of controlling everything, I want you fighting sideways, never upward. And look at our country right now. Everyone's fighting sideways instead of up. So I get you to fight sideways. You'll never look up. You'll never see me standing there kind of pulling all these strings, because I'm getting you to fight wars that are horizontal instead of vertical.
Would you say that's the biggest PSYOP happening right now? Because I have a few others we could go through.
There are some much bigger ones. But one thing that I've told my kids as they were growing up, and we're at my house right now. I don't know if we said that yet, but like, this is my office that we're sitting in. You got to meet my son last night and again today. And when they were growing up, they would always ask about, like, did they get hypnotized? Did somebody get controlled? They were 6, 7 years old asking these questions. And one thing I would always remind them are the events are real. The story behind them are almost never real. So when you see something happen, the event is happening. The story behind it and the entire thing is usually some kind of theater production. There's something happening there where we are in engineered reality. And if you look at that engineered reality matrix, you can just clearly see that so many of these things are engineered. And I'm not saying there's actors being hired and things like that, but I'm saying the situations are engineered. You see a big catastrophe happen the moment some big embarrassing thing is about to get released. And it's every time. So there's always something going on. And I'm not sitting here as some harbinger of truth who's saying like, oh, I've got everything figured out and I know all these guys pulling the strings. I've never focused too much on that, because knowing about it is not going to really free you. You're not going to be like, it make you feel cool. You get a placebo of some kind of control of your life, but you have none. I want to focus on what are the methods that are being used. How can I make people aware of the methods, and how do I train people in these methods so we can start using them in a war against that in our own mind of just fighting against being in that level of control.
We'll get into some of the methods a bit later in the interview that can help people protect themselves from a PSYOP and use some of Chase's methods in their own life. But I do want to ask, why do you think the Israel-Gaza PSYOP failed in the US? Because it seems like America used to have a very positive opinion of Israel and Israel affairs, and that has largely shifted to the point where it's become mainstream to say a thing like free Palestine. So from a psychological operative perspective, why do you think they might not have won their case?
There's a few reasons. There was a CIA program. I think it started in 1957. It was called Project Mockingbird. Are you familiar with this?
Part of this, yeah.
They installed so if you talk to your parents, every news anchor that they remember from their childhood, there's like a 90% chance that was a actual CIA operative. And this is documented, released documents. Guys like Walter Cronkite, like one of the most famous news anchors of all time, working for the CIA to engineer reality. And they're in the business of engineering reality. And you just have to understand that so much of our reality is engineered. It doesn't mean you walk around like a schizophrenic thinking that everything's out to get you, everybody's targeting you. It just means like you see something happen on the news, you see something happen in your life, and you just have one word. Just memorize this one word when you anybody listening, when you hear that stuff or see that stuff. Maybe. They say, oh, this happened today because of this one thing. Maybe. Just maybe. You don't have to say there's some global cabal and like I need to drill down to the end and go break into the Bohemian Grove and like figure out all the shit that's going on. You don't need to do all that. Just maybe. That word can protect you from so much of the bullshit that's going on with engineered reality. I don't even know what your question was.
I will say, just as an aside, that spending time with Chase and his son, the one thing I noticed was he wouldn't let his son make any direct, like full identity statements or just like absolute statements. He'd be like, maybe that's the case. Don't say that. Say it could have been this. And I found that to be very interesting. I think it's very helpful in people's life to usually say maybe as well. But the original question was, why do you think the Israel-Gaza PSYOP failed?
Yeah. So back to Mockingbird then. So there was, as time went on through the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a very strong foothold in what the American public was exposed to, the opinions and everything else. So it wasn't like, there's so many people that think, oh, when Twitter and Facebook came out, we could engineer people's opinions. No, this shit's been going on in the newspapers for a very long time, since like the 1920s. And it started with another guy who was Sigmund Freud's nephew, which is another story if you want to get into it. But it's been going on for a long time.
What was that guy's name? Just so people have context.
Edward Bernays.
Was the father of propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The father of American propaganda, anyway. There were some Soviet programs that were really good too. So as that, they had a strong foothold, and essentially, just to turn this into like a couple of sentences, that foothold loosened as people were able to get on social media, and then Twitter X was acquired by Elon, and then he just had this policy of like open truth, and you're not going to get kicked off of here for offending people, which like offending people isn't against the law. Like we should be able to offend each other to have powerful discussions and change politics, and even forwarding scientific advancement should risk offending somebody who wrote a paper or something. So that came out, and then it became less. So there's always been some outliers. There's some guy who runs a podcast. There's like the Alex Joneses of the world who just don't give a shit, and they will just unload, and they don't care about the social consequences. But a lot of people who have these opinions were scared of like, oh, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to have social consequences. I'm not going to talk about anything. But the apparent consequences of speaking up are getting less and less and less than they used to be. So the reduction in social consequences is making the conversation seem to be like people are willing to speak their mind a little bit more. But when people are saying like free Palestine and all of this kind of stuff, a lot of that is about identity. It's not about like you learned about Palestine and then you made an agreement. If you look at this, it's just going to upset a few people, but I just want you to look at this objectively, that what I do today and the things that I post online are not me making a decision today. It's everything I've made a decision about for the last 2 years publicly. So what have you done publicly for the last few years? Maybe I committed to being a member of a left or a right leaning party. And that means that I also committed to this and then this and then this. So that shapes all of our behavior. And I think some people may not be willing to admit it, and that's okay. Some people may not be ready. You got to be willing to admit that like we get shaped by our past, and we get shaped by the things that we're publicly made to agree with. And if I can get you to make an agreement, that's one thing. If I can get you to make that agreement in front of 10 people, I alter your behavior almost permanently. because of how you view yourself and not wanting to go away and be seen as a person who's not who they say they are in front of the tribe. So I think a lot of that comes down to the fear of tribal outcast. So when I said 2 sentences, I meant 29. So
it's fair as well that just from the way you're describing this, that Free Palestine appeared to be lingo that was fairly restricted or at least unfamiliar to people. And then in of itself, people made it a movement to be like the underdog. These are the victims. And I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I'm saying that was at least what most people will tell you, which makes it the more likely side to join.
And if I view them as the underdog, then everything I see on social media is going to agree with me, and they're going to show me what I need. So if I'm looking at something online and I agree with the Free Palestine thing, I'm only going to see anti-Israel content, because if I start seeing stuff I disagree with, I'm going to close the app. I'm going to exit out of the app. So Dr. Phil has a great way to think about this. And Dr. Phil says, no matter how flat you make a pancake, it still has 2 sides. And I think it's important for us to look at both sides of every story. So if I'm on the I support Israel forever side, I want to look at some of the opposing narratives. I want to look at some of the other things. If I'm on the Free Palestine side, I'm going to look at some of the other things from the other side and what they think. And I want everybody to know, if you're listening, our brains have not physically changed in 200,000 years. No new wrinkles or anything. There's nothing really different about our brain. And we tend to think, we want to tell ourselves that our brain is a truth-seeking mechanism. It's wired to seek the truth. It is the opposite of that. Our brain's job is to keep us alive and search for things that we already think are true. So your brain is basically a defense attorney, and their job is to prove you right all the time. And once we understand that, I'm going to start looking at other things. So I'm either A, well-informed, or B, I'm not going to consume one-sided narrative-based media.
Do you think porn is part of a psyop?
No.
Do you think AI is a government psyop?
No.
Do you think Jeffrey Epstein is a government psyop?
I think government op without the psi.
So you don't think it's possible that Jeff Epstein was just a financier?
No. And I know a lot of people who are way more educated than I am on the whole situation. I don't read about it. I don't follow a lot of those stories. Everyone that I know that works in intel positions thinks that it was a operation of some kind.
Why do you think everyone has become more anxious?
That's a very good question. And this is just my opinion. I think we have anxiety because we have unlimited amount of distraction and thought anesthetic. So like you go to the bathroom, you take your phone. You go in the shower, you put on a YouTube video so you can listen to it. You sit in the car. We don't have boredom anymore. And boredom used to be one of the ways that we would mentally process a lot of stuff. And the second piece of this is, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is a model, and all models are wrong, some models are useful. I think this model is useful. The third level, you have survival, and then safety, and then belonging, and this kind of social part of the triangle. And on the belonging part of the triangle, our brains were wired, like we said, our brains haven't changed in a long time. Our brains are wired to handle a tribe of like 150, 175 people. And you have a life in social media that has tens of millions of people in there. We cannot handle it. Our brains cannot possibly handle it. But it gives us a placebo that we're actually connecting to other people. And this is why we have a global pandemic right now of loneliness. Even though we're more connected, but we're more lonely than ever before. Because what we are usually on social media is performative. I'm performing something. So no matter how much someone likes me, I know for a fact they're not liking me for me. So we get anxiety. Social anxiety is through the roof. General anxiety is through the roof. Dr. Daniel Amen has some great commentary on this stuff when he was on, I think he was on Rogan like a week ago talking about this. And when we don't experience real connection with people and we're performative all the time, we are desperate for people to tell us things, to connect with us. But even if they do connect with us, we know it's not the real me. So we don't have any real social fulfillment. There's a French philosopher named Sartre, and he wrote about this thing, and it's now commonly referred to as Sartre's hell. You get these three people, and they're essentially in hell, but hell is other people. And it's not in a way that you might think. In Sartre's hell, you get locked in a room, sort of locked in a room with these three people, and everyone needs so badly for other people to acknowledge something about them. I need everybody to see that I'm a good person. I need everybody to see that I'm beautiful. I need everybody to see that I have a good heart, or whatever it is. And in Sartre's hell, they're desperate. There's three people, and he goes up to one of the other people, and one of the guys says, I need you to tell me that I'm a good person. I need you to tell me this about myself. And the other person says, yes, that is you. And he doesn't believe him. So he refuses to believe him, but he's still desperate for them to keep saying it and keep saying it. And the funny thing is, the door opens like once a day so they can walk right out of the room and no one leaves, because they're desperate to confirm these things. They're desperate to confirm who they are through the eyes of other people. And that's where we are right now. All of us getting into this desperation for, if I get enough likes on this video, if I don't have a pimple on my chin, then people are going to think I'm more credible. If I don't say these words right, then people are going to think I'm less credible. So I want to confirm what I believe about myself through the behavior of other people. And that is Sartre's hell. And I think that we are living in a digital version of Sartre's hell right now.
I do want to touch back a bit, because I realize I glided past something you said. You said that a lot of the main anchors at the big media companies were CIA operatives. Do you think that's happening today?
Yes.
Did you think I was a CIA operative?
No.
What are the signs?
You mean like, what should we look for online? I think when somebody is asked a difficult question about their government, their agency that they might be working for, they might answer it in a negative way, but then they'll say, yes, but they do all this good thing and that good thing and that good thing. So that I think that allegiance mandates some kind of PR maintenance. So asking those really difficult questions are the way that I see people respond to those. And it doesn't make me say, oh yeah, 100% that guy is an agent or whatever. But it does make me say, interesting. That's interesting. That person got asked about something that happened in the 1950s with the CIA. And they say, like, yes, they did that back then. However, nowadays, their new focus is this and this and this. And they'll throw a little commercial on top of the admission of the negative thing that happened.
Yeah, I think Gen Z, maybe this is biased, because this is at least my belief, but I think people would be surprised that the CIA is sophisticated enough to infiltrate the influencers that Gen Z and Gen Alpha watch. Because they're like, oh, there's no way these older guys are able to get in here and do this kind of thing with us. You know, like, we're watching TikTok, we're watching, I don't know, Sora AI videos, Instagram Reels. But if you were theoretically going to design a psychological operation, what would be the main areas you think you would have covered on social media?
You mean like if I wanted to recruit someone like you?
No, I suppose Like, do you think they're everywhere? Do you think it's just media? Do you think it's podcasts maybe? Do you think it's TikTokers? Like, how many is it everywhere?
I think it's in every area where media is consumed. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And I'm not saying, let's be clear. So when I'm saying like somebody's an operative or whatever word you want to use, they're not like walking around on their off time, pulling out their secret CIA ID card and badging into the main building. That's not what happens. Even if you go back to Project Mockingbird, they're just getting some talking points in a letter every once in a while. They're just saying, oh, you know what? Don't have this guy on your show, or don't allow this to be spoken about on your show. Or if they talk about this, you're going to cut it out. There's simple things like that. Some very basic instructions. And the way that somebody like a Gen Z person might get recruited is, let's just use a hypothetical person instead of a real person.
So you're talking about how someone like me could get recruited into this.
Yeah.
So it's not like designed from birth.
Oh, no, not at all. They'll typically capitalize on the people who already have talent and skill. It's not like they're going to they don't have to worry about that, because people are going to rise to the top and they don't have to worry about training them in charisma, media, on-camera presence. They just find the people that are already doing well. So it saves them a lot of time and a lot of money. So let's say one day, let's just use you as an example. Somebody comes up and says, hey man, I love your podcast, yada, yada. They're in a restaurant, a bar, whatever. And they say, I have a serious question for you though. Are you a patriot? Would you consider yourself a patriot? Now I've got you locked into identity, right? Exactly what we talked about at the beginning of our show here. So you consider yourself a patriot. Then we'll go on a little bit. I'll get you to make a few more comments and stuff like that. And I'll get you to make a few more agreements that say that, yeah, I support the country and all that kind of stuff. And then I say, well, I have an offer for you, but before I show you anything, I just want you to say yes or no. Would you be willing to entertain the offer and look at what I have? And it might be uncomfortable. Would you be willing to look at it?
Sure.
Yep. Stage one is I show you all of your browsing history, captures from your webcams on all of your phones and computers of you doing the most compromising shit you could ever possibly imagine. Every bad thing you've ever done, recorded in some way. And I'd say, I like your podcast. I think you're doing a great job, and I want to protect you. And I want to keep all this from the public eye. But we also want to give you $20,000 a month. So I'm going to protect you, and B, I'm going to give you $20K a month from all this. So you have the carrot and you have the stick at the exact same briefing, and you agreed to receive the briefing from me even after I told you it was going to be stressful. So now you feel like you chose all of this. So you walk away not feeling like I shoved this in your face. I told you it was going to be stressful, and you agreed to it, and you agreed that you're a patriot and all the other agreements. And now if you say yes, the reason that you're doing this on your podcast is for your country, because you're not going to call yourself compromised. We have this thing called cognitive dissonance that keeps our brain from thinking I'm a bad person. We have a hardwired thing in our brain that says, I did this bad thing for this good reason. It's in everybody's brain. So now when you go back on the podcast, you're going to go back to that sense of patriotism, because that's how that person